Whatever remaining doubts over the Taliban's claims of having changed for the better evaporated after the extremist group announced its much-delayed new government for Afghanistan. As it turned out, a collection of globally wanted terrorists, Al-Qaeda allies and drug barons starting all the way to the top. The Prime Minister, Mullah Hassan Akhund, is on a UN global terror list. A US diplomatic cable that was leaked said he is one of the most ineffective and unreasonable of Taliban leaders, subject to mood swings and is difficult to work with. He holds prejudices against both Westerners and Mujahideen. He sanctioned the destruction of the Bamiyan Buddhas in 2001. Now, despite all of this, he actually edged out a quote-unquote relatively more moderate Taliban leader, Mullah Baradar, for the top job. Akhund is said to be close to the late Mullah Omar, the founder of the Taliban, and he, like Omar, was born in Kandahar, the Taliban bastion. The interior minister in charge of security and the biggest gainer in all this is Sirajuddin Haqqani, who's on this FBI wanted list, a poster of which has gone viral since. He's been behind the bombings of the Indian embassy. Pakistan's hand is supposed to be behind his entry into the Taliban cabinet. He's said to maintain close ties with Al-Qaeda. His base is eastern Afghanistan on the Pakistan border, and he may have the powers to also appoint provincial governors, which is why everyone is calling him the biggest winner of this churn. The refugee minister is his uncle, Khalil Haqqani, also on the US UN global terror list, also of the Haqqani terror network. The deputy prime minister, Mullah Baradar, is also on a UN global terror list. The New York Times described him as a brutal commander on the battlefield. He was arrested, released finally under US pressure, from where he began a political outreach based in Doha, Qatar. The deputy prime minister, Mullah Abdul Hanafi, is also on a UN sanctions list. He is allegedly involved in drug trafficking during Taliban 1.0. The defense minister, Mullah Yaqub Mujahid, is not on any terror list, but he is the son of the Taliban's emir, the late Mullah Omar. And Mullah Yaqub is currently the head of all Taliban's military operations in 2020. The intelligence chief, Abdul Haq Wasiq, is a former Guantanamo Bay prisoner, released in exchange for a US prisoner of war. The New York Times says his interrogation files too point to close ties to Al-Qaeda. The deputy of intelligence, Mullah Taj Mir Jawad, is allegedly a member of the Haqqani network. He is believed to have been the head of suicide attacks that crippled Kabul, said to have lived in Peshawar under the ISI support. The Taliban also appears to have brought back something called the Ministry of Proselytizing and Preaching, headed by a Sheikh Khalid, which is raising fears whether this is a return to the horrific days of the Taliban's religious police that used to drive around Kabul and surround and beat up people who it believed was not following its strict Islamic code. Of course, no women and no members of Afghanistan's earlier regime, and almost all those in the ministry are Pashtuns, the tribe to which the Taliban mostly belongs. Now, what does it mean for all these men who are on a UN sanction list and now are part of a government? There's a freeze on traveling and transiting through other countries if you're on a UN terror list. There's a freeze on assets and economic resources. There's a freeze on sale and transfer to other countries. Now, undeterred by all this, the women of Afghanistan took to the streets for the second day in a row, marching and protesting and demanding their hard-fought rights. The media got a taste of the so-called new Taliban. What we're going to play you are videos and images of journalists for the media outlet Ehtiyat Rose out covering the protests. They were seen limping out of Taliban custody after being arrested by the Taliban. Some of them, in these images shared, appear to have been lashed severely, all simply, it would seem, for covering these protests.